Hello everyone. I'm now doing number 7 of 30. It's funny, when I first was planning on doing the 30 for 30, I was like, oh, I'm going to do one every day. But it just hasn't happened that way. It's been a slow process. And it is what it is. Accepting what it is, accepting the flow of what is. Which is also what this video is going to be about. I had an interesting thing happen the other day that makes for a good story and a good lesson. I wanted to share with you guys, and it's on the topic of acceptance. You could call it radical acceptance, or you could just call it, simply accepting what is. So I drive for rideshare, Uber and Lyft on the side. It pays the bills and allows me to have a flexible schedule and everything. And yesterday I went out for a couple hours, and my first ride, I arrived to the destination of my first ride, and I got there, and I waited a minute or two, and didn't see the passenger. And generally on the app, it says you wait about 3 minutes, and then you call them, and if you don't get a response, you cancel. 3 minutes is about the max of a wait, which I kind of push the boundaries of, because I don't mind waiting necessarily. And I don't want the person to get charged for not getting a ride, but that's besides the point. So I'm sitting there. It's been about 2 minutes, and I decided to call her, just to, see if she's still on her way. I call her, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm still on the train. I'll be there in 7 minutes. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I accepted it, and then she's like, oh, see you in a minute. It's like, okay. And then we hung up. So I'm sitting there in the car waiting. At this point, it had been 5-6 minutes, which may not sound like a lot, but if you are a driver, you know that it's actually, for me anyway, I end up not having to wait more than a couple minutes, because generally people know the driver's not really supposed to wait. You're supposed to be ready, right? So I've never had a ride take more than maybe 5 minutes to wait. And so when it was happening, I had little flurries of thoughts come in, and a little bit of an emotion come in of like impatience, and like oh, this is my first ride, and I'm already not getting off to a good start, and little thoughts of like, oh, and how could this passenger be so unaware of the fact that like my time is valuable, and I need to make money, and so all these little stories. But anytime one came up, because I'm pretty deep into the practices, I would catch it and say okay, and then drop it. And I also had remembered the practice of Eckhart teaching about the difference between waiting and being. Waiting is a state of mind, whereas being is just being content with what is. Waiting is sort of my feeling of being content is in the future, and once I get to that point, then I'll feel content. That's what waiting is. But being doesn't care about the future at all. It's just like, oh, I'm here, and I enjoy being here. And so that's what I came back to, as the minutes slowly added while I was waiting. I decided, now I'm going to accept this deeply as it is spiritually. I'm going to bring my spiritual practice into this. This is work, but this doesn't mean it can't be spiritual. And which I've been doing for a long time, but again, it comes up in such different ways. So I was making it a practice to observe my mind, how it was reacting to the pressure of time, which ironically is my last video, and letting it go, releasing the tension, the resistance inside my body, making it a practice. And at about 15-16 minutes, she calls again, and she's like, okay, I'm here. And she's arrived, and she walks over to my car. And, that's like triple the amount of time I've ever had to wait for somebody. But I didn't make it into a big story. I just was, okay, I am practicing spiritually. So inside, I honestly felt gratitude for the opportunity to practice this and to test my my practice, so to speak, or my understanding. I mean, it's one thing to say all of this stuff that I'm saying or teaching, but what really matters is if I'm doing it, right? So I got a chance to really test that, and I feel like I accomplished it pretty well. I had no internal resistance towards her, no no negativity towards her. I already had forgiven everything because I was content with being. But she gets in the car, and of course she apologizes a lot, and then she explains that this is the first time she's ever used Uber, and she wasn't quite sure of how it all works, and so then that kind of made more sense as to why it came, it all kind of fell into place like that. But then something even more beautiful happened. I explained, I was like, no, it's okay. I warned her that most drivers will probably leave after about 3 to 5 minutes, but she got lucky because I'm picking her up and I'm just using it to meditate. And her eyes lit up when I said meditate. And she's like, oh, I meditate too. And then we started talking, and it turns out she's read The Power of Now, and she's familiar with a lot of the teachers that I study. And it was a great, wonderful connection and conversation for like the 15-20 minute ride. And not only that, she also gave me some pointers on how I could approach teaching meditation to small 4-person groups while charging a humble amount of money that would still help me in some way, but also because I get stuck on charging money for any of this. Part of me doesn't like charging money, but that's another story. But and so the purpose of this is that I had the choice, the opportunity to cancel the ride. I still would have gotten paid some money, and technically would have been in the right because we're only supposed to wait so long. But I ignored all of that, and I made it my spiritual practice to test what I'm teaching, to apply what I'm teaching, and to just observe myself, my reactions. Turn the mirror on myself. That's what I always do. That's what's gotten me to where I am, is that I am not afraid to look in the mirror in every situation and not blame the outside, but just keep myself accountable for how I'm reacting internally. And sure enough, after having done that, it was a wonderful gift, of somebody that I was really able to relate to and benefit from in the conversation, and as was she. And it's just beautiful when those types of synchronicities occur. And it all kind of can be sourced back to just a deep acceptance of what was or what is. But in that moment, it was what was. It was just like, okay, this is what's happening. It's out of my control, and I'm just going to go with the flow. Now, granted, this is a smaller, easier thing to accept than a lot of our life challenges. And so, maybe for you, pay attention to small challenges that are coming up in your day. Maybe right now, or maybe just at some point during your day. Just keep listening or paying attention to small challenges that irritate you or that make you feel resistance or like this isn't supposed to be happening this way or whatever. And then use it as an opportunity to practice deep acceptance and just saying, not just saying okay, it's a feeling of okay. It's a feeling of, all right, I accept this. I can't change it. It's out of my control. I can only control my internal reaction. And so I'm going to choose to accept this because it is what it is. And there's a lot of power in that. I think there's even more to it than I even realize. It may even have the ability to actually change the physical environment, which is quite mind-blowing when you think about it. But for now, let's just focus on the smaller aspects of the fact that it's wonderful for maintaining internal peace and keeping your conscious state sort of elevated, so to speak, rather than slipping down into aggression and anger and all the stuff the mind creates, suffering. So that's the random lesson of the now, number 7, accepting what is. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in number 8. Feel free to contact me at any time if you would like. Much love.